Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. It's May the 10th, 1972, and if you ever studied Vietnam conflict, this day might sound familiar to you. This was the second day of Operation Linebacker, a large bombing campaign of the North. This was also a day of some major air-to-air battles between North Vietnamese Air Force on one side and US Air Force and US Navy on the other side. This day also gave Americans the first fighter ace of the conflict, but this is not the story we will focus on in this video. Instead, we will focus on operations of US Air Force and Vietnamese units which confronted it on that day. As for the Air Force, this was pretty much an old phantom war by now. F-4 having replaced almost all the earlier types used in the conflict, especially the Century series fighters, and F-4 was now practically the only fighter and the only fighter bomber in the US Air Force inventory. Now the target of this day of the campaign, main target was the Paul Doomer Bridge, a large railway bridge on the outskirts of Hanoi, which was crucial to North Vietnamese efforts in supporting the invasion of the South. This bridge had previously been attacked several times during the war, but never truly put out of action. But there was one major advantage on the American side this time, and that was smart weapons. Now, if you think that smart weapons were first used in Operation Desert Storm, you are mistaken. The first generation of laser-guided bombs and electro-optically guided bombs were actually used in Vietnam in 1972. As for the North Vietnamese Air Force, this was probably the most difficult day of all. They lost no less than 11 fighters in air-to-air conflict, plus some others in accidents. And the only fighter that was able to fight back and shoot down 2 American fighters on that date was MiG-19, which you could argue was the least important of 3 fighter types operated by the communists during the conflict. Or to be more precise, this was the Chinese copy J6. 925th Regiment, the first unit to operate this type, became operational in 1969, which means that it didn't take part in the early phase of the conflict, but it was ready for this late phase. And the type first saw action in early 1972. We have now taken off with the first flight of Dien Bai airfield. Of course, such a large operation did not go unnoticed on the North Vietnamese side, and their radars were able to track all the groups of American airplanes approaching its airspace, which essentially meant that fighter units were ready. And we are now joining the second flight of 925th Regiment. The pilot is Nguyen Man Tung, and he was vectored into a very interesting situation. Major Lodge was chasing one of the MiG-21s that survived the initial clash, and behind him was Lieutenant Markle, his wingman, covering E6. Now Nguyen Man Tung stumbled into this situation, and instead of doing the logical thing and attacking the wingman, he decided to attack the leader instead. We're not exactly sure why. Perhaps he didn't even see the wingman, but it is also likely that he wanted to save his comrade, who was obviously under great threat of Major Lodge, who was about to shoot him down. And there was the second successful kill achieved by MiG-19s on that day. The pilot, Nguyen Man Tung, didn't enjoy success for very long. Just before landing back at Yen Bai airfield, he ran out of fuel and crashed while attempting to land without the engines. As for the attack against Paul Doomer Bridge, it was a success. The bridge was put out of action for a very long time using smart weapons. I hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to press the like button. That's very important for the channel. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Feel free to comment. Of course, subscribe if you haven't done so already. And keep watching Showtime 112.